Hello and welcome to the Outcast. I'm your host HC, and with me is.
Wolf.
And today, I think for the first time in forever, I'm in uncharted territory. This is the Fallout Amazon Prime show.
Yeah.
So, I guess starting off with experience. I know Fallout is a video game franchise that exists. I know it's an RPG, right?
Yeah. Yeah. It started off as like a CRPG and then has become like a first/third person RPG from Bethesda.
Mhm. And I know that Fallout 76 is apparently bad.
It depends on who you talk to. Some people hate it, some people enjoy it. You know, it's one of those things. Most people, I think, most fans of the series don't like it. I would say that. But
Mhm.
it's like an okay game from what I understand. But I've not
And
played much of it either.
that's the one. Let's say there's a YouTuber I like called Matt McMuscles. He makes a show called What Happened, which details troubled video game and movie developments.
Mm.
So Fallout 76 is the only game he did and the only episode he did, which is a two-parter. Make of it as you will. So,
Mm-hmm.
but back to the thing, I know nothing about Fallout, and nothing against that. It's just one of those things that was never my genre. It was never
Fair.
in my eyesight. So I know some of it. Like I know the mascot that it has. I know that it's an RPG franchise and that people overall like it, and that it's from Bethesda.
Yeah.
Anything else, I am unfamiliar. I am going into this completely blind. So,
Fair
Wolf,
enough.
what is your experience with
Well,
Fallout?
I got into it with 3. I know people hate me when I say that. Some people anyways. But I got into it with Fallout 3 when Bethesda first took it over, but I have went back and played some of the older Fallouts, so I have experience with like the entire series to some degree. I've played um I've not played 76, but I have played 4 and all the other stuff in between all of that, right? So I have a pretty good amount of experience with this series and I kind of knew what to expect from it coming in.
Okay. So, would you consider yourself like a casual fan?
Yeah, I would say casual fan because I think there's a lot of lore and other tidbits of things that like I'm not as interested in and don't care as much about, right?
hmm Well, the one thing I will say before we actually start talking about this is, for one, this seems to kind of continue the trend of, you know, good video game adaptations that we had
Yeah.
for the past 5 years or so. And because we had last year we had The Last of Us, which people have been talking about, have been putting alongside some of the quality shows, and I kind of seen people do the same with Fallout. So
Yeah.
regardless of what we say, that is exciting. And also, I've heard that apparently, thanks to this show, interest in buying the older games on Steam skyrocketed. And I think that's just really freaking cool that people saw this and decided we want to play the original games. We want to play, you know, we want to play the originals. I think this is a really cool thing. So major plus for that.
No, agreed. Like it definitely Fallout 4 and Fallout 3 and a bunch of the old ones like Fallout New Vegas, a bunch of the old stuff really shot up in
Mhm.
popularity for a bit, which makes sense when you have a show like this, but hey, it worked out. It's always a good thing. More people playing and enjoying and being interested in more stuff is always a good thing.
Yep. Well, with that being said, I liked the show. I think it's a good show. I just think there's a bit too much going on in it, which could some of the plot lines could be their own show. And at some point, I did find it a bit hard to keep track. And with the long episode count, I did kind of lose it at some point. But not to take away from it, I definitely recommend it if you're into the genres.
No, I would agree completely. If you're a Fallout fan, I think this is the show for you, right? If you are into this style of if you are into this style and genre of show, I think this is also definitely for you. I know there's been some controversy with some fans and stuff like that. We can talk about that a little bit later, but overall, I think the show is definitely one of those like this is a good show, and if you're a fan of Fallout, you're eating with this show. You're doing great.
Hmm. So I guess this is the only really non-spoilery thing we could say. So might as well just go into spoilers. If you haven't
Yeah.
seen Fallout Season 1, then this is your chance to close the video. We are recommending it as from a casual fan and a total noob. The show is worth checking out, but we also kind of think that at least I think that it does balance a bit too much that I would say is not necessarily needed. Like you're doing good enough with some of the plot lines, but yeah, overall I enjoyed it. I would recommend it. Can't tell you how good it is as a fan because I barely know the games, but I would say worth checking out. What did you whisper there? Good?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
As a
Mhm.
fan, it's good.
Okay.
You'll be satisfied. It's fine.
Mhm. So, spoilers in 3, 2, 1. Still here? Good. So, it's a post apocalyptic show. Yay, another one.
Everybody's dead.
I will say, though, the opening actually kind of caught me off guard.
What do you mean?
Like, because it seemed like for one, I have no idea what year is this. Okay, like
Oh,
I
okay.
have the Wikipedia. I have the Wikipedia article here, and it says it's like that apparently it's in 2077.
Yep.
But if you showed me this, I would say this is like 80s suburbia.
Oh yeah, like that's one of I think the neat things about Fallout is it basically says, hey, what if the like that 1950s to 1970s, maybe a little bit late 80s era, just never went away, but it got really advanced future tech, right? It's really
Mhm.
neat. Like there's not a lot of stuff out there that does something like that, right?
Yeah. Well, but so like I see this and it's like, huh, this is interesting. Kind of flashes me back to when my fiance and I decided let's watch Don't Worry, Darling, and oh boy, do we regret that decision. but but it kind of reminded me of that vibe of
Yeah.
everything's fine in this very old school kind of world, and suddenly Adam Bomb goes on, and then another one and another one. It's like, how did we go from Don't Worry, Darling, but intentionally funny to Godzilla? Somebody tell me. And then suddenly we jump 200 years into the future. It's like, okay, all right,
And
interesting.
we jump 200 years to the future. Everyone's dead. Welcome to Vault 33.
Yeah. So that's the thing that I kind of want to talk about it. I love the idea of Lucy. That's the main character.
Yep. Lucy
Yeah,
McLean.
yeah. So I love the idea. For one, also like the actress Ella Ponell. Is that her name? I hope
Yeah.
I pronounced it right.
You got it.
But like she's like the perfect choice for this role because on the
I
one hand
agree.
she has like this very ditzy naive look to her. Like you look at her face and you're like, she's a klutz. She's someone who doesn't know up from down. She hadn't like if I saw this person in real life, I would be like, wow,
Do you want to
she's
know something wild?
okay.
I don't know
Hit
if you
me.
do know this, but if you don't, she is Jinx in the Arcane show.
Oh, that's really cool.
So like she has some range to her.
And she has range in good video game adaptations,
Yeah, like a fair.
apparently.
Yeah, she's been in quite a. She's been in. She's also in Invincible, but like not huge, just like in an episode.
Okay, still, But anyway, but like in terms of this show, she just has this like look in her eyes that you're like, wow, you don't know anything about it. Like you're a silver spoon fed, gold spoon fed chick who didn't work a day in her life, and I kind of like you for that. I want to protect you. But at the same time, when she's putting on that suit and when she's firing the weapons and she's doing the kick-ass action shots, you believe that she can do it. Like it's that perfect. It's such an odd balance to just strike, but
But it's
she's
interesting
doing
though.
it.
It's interesting though too, right? Because they're trying to, and I think they do exceptionally well at this. Because in the games, right, you always create your own character, right? There's
Yeah,
no main character that you play as. You create your own, so they have no real character to them. And you're
yeah,
someone who goes into the vault and or you're someone who like wakes up in the vault and you've basically lived your whole life in the vault, and that's basic. And then you get out of the vault, and stuff ensues, yada yada, blah blah blah. But I love how they're doing this thing of like, oh, she's like, growing harder, I guess you'd say, the more time she spends out in the wasteland. Like she's growing like more
yeah.
cynical and like, what's the word?
I guess you could say a bit more jaded.
Yes, jaded, that's the word. There you go. Thank you. You know the English language better than I do.
Debatable, but all right.
But yeah, like she's becoming more jaded. You can see that, and I think they do so well at it because, like you said, right, she very much looks like a bit of a bit ditzy, a bit like she really doesn't understand or get anything about the world. Then, as she experiences more of it, you can see very quickly that kind of changes.
Definitely. And so I liked her as a main character, and
Hmm.
I like the idea that she grew up in this vault where they basically just kind of sugarcoat everything. Like, they don't really tell you about the atom bomb, the thing that happened. They just like, everything's perfect here. We have TV, we have a perfect life, we have the sun. Everything is just, oh, so gosh darn joyful. And then suddenly, and then you get to the day of her wedding where she marries this hunk who she actually wants to be with. And when after the wedding she wants to get to know him, and he's just like, and he just like, takes his clothes off because obviously they only get married to have sex and have kids. And her response is, okie dokie. I don't It's so bizarre, but also really funny into some degree. And then shit goes down, and the vault is being breached.
Hmm.
On the one hand, I fucking love that because it's such. I'm not sure if it's the intention or if the games are also like that or something, but
They're
this
similar
is
sometimes.
no. But I want to say that this is something almost kind of cynically critical of education systems and how they don't really teach kids or anyone how to get how to find their way in the world. It's just like, we are giving you the information as it is. Knock yourself out once you're out of school or something, right? i
Interesting.
felt like I felt like this was kind of it. And then as I'm writing notes for this podcast and I'm thinking about it, it kind of started fucking me up in a way that, fuck, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just, I had so many things going well in my life, and it sounded like, what if one day it will all be gone? And it sent me into a depression for a bit.
This show got you.
Yeah, like it got me, but it got me out of nowhere. It was the
Mm.
sudden gut punch I wasn't even thinking about. I only thought about it after I finished the season.
See, that's interesting though. That didn't cross my mind as much. Maybe because like I'm deeper into it, right? And
Could be.
I'm looking for different things than you are. So I think it's wild that that's kind of the reaction you had to it, right?
Mhm.
I love that
And
though.
I'm not sure. Also, so that was really weird. I mean,
No, I
I
mean
mean,
I think that's a good
also I
thing.
guess,
If
because
a show can
I'm
do that,
also
right?
I'm also like I'm also probably in a point where a lot of changes are happening in my life. So
Fair.
I maybe just kind of hit me in a
Yeah.
place where I wasn't expecting.
Oh,
But
fair.
then also, like, when the vault is being breached by the other vault, I suppose. Like she's from Vault 33, and I think the people who breached them are like Vault 32. I think it was.
That's what they pretend to be, but then you find out, oh no, they're from outside. They're from the
Yeah,
wasteland.
yeah. So they breach it, and like on the one hand, it's like I'm thinking, okay, I get it, they're like the bad guys, but maybe it's just also again stuff that's happening in the world, but it's like, and the entire sequence of the of, let's call it, the raid is shot in slow motion, which I get is supposed to be impactful, but all I could think of is, wow, the episode would probably be like 10 minutes shorter if it was actually in regular speed.
Listen, I think that is partially, I could be wrong, but I think that is partially a reference to the game's VATS system whenever they do slow-mo stuff like that. Because in the game you have this thing that kind of slows down time a little bit, so you can target different body parts in the game, or different, like, do other things in like a slowed down time thing, right?
Gotcha.
So that might be a bit of a reference. I'm not going to say it is or isn't, but it might be. But because I don't know for sure.
But again, for the record,
I get you. It's like it's very. I get what you're doing. It's fine, but it wasn't needed.
But if you say it is like a paying tribute to something from the game, then you know what? I'll give it a pass for a bit.
I could be wrong. Don't quote me.
And then but I will say though, action scenes and everything really well done. And the name that kind of popped into my head when I was watching this show is Edgar Wright, in the best way possible. I love Edgar Wright's movies. And there's something about the colors, the way it's shot, the way it's edited, that kind of gave me Edgar Wright vibes. So kudos to the show for that.
Fair. I think the first, like, between Vault 32 or between Vault 33 and the Raiders, I think that fight scene, it's fine, but I think my favorite one though was, honestly, anything involving the ghoul was so good.
Yeah, well, the ghoul is like the creature that they are fighting, right?
Yeah, the ghoul is. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, the Hollywood actor that's now
Walton Goggins.
Yeah, like,
best man in the world. He is so good.
He's so good, but I will say it did kind of go away as I was watching this, right? But like, what the fuck is that nose? Is that how it is in the games? Am I missing something?
More or less, yeah. It's pretty similar. That's kind of the idea, yeah.
Because I see this, and on the one hand, I'm thinking Voldemort, and also I'm thinking of those, of these toddler games where they have to fit the shape into the right hole. That's what is those games. That's the vibe I see. Like, it's like, what shape is this nose? And then you see a kid putting that nose in there.
Interesting. Also, by the way, Walton Goggins, also in Invincible. He's Cecil.
Huh. Oh shit! You're right. Now I realize why the voice is familiar. Holy shit!
So also, you got to watch Cecil being Cecil again.
Well, I mean, both are Amazon Prime, so I guess they keep track of the people they employ. I suppose.
Seems so.
So anyway, but yeah, he was cool. But I think one of the plot lines that I found the most fascinating was Maximus.
I'm curious to hear what you think about Maximus, the Brotherhood of Steel.
Because so for one, we get that he was a survivor of the kind of like Ghoul. He was a survivor of the atom bomb from 200 years ago. And
not quite, but
not quite. Then maybe I missed it, but because we keep seeing him as a kid out of the bunker. So
yeah,
maybe I'm just
basically another atom bomb was set off later on. And destroyed another city.
Good to know. I like that they're consistent.
Always destroyed by always an atom bomb. just always another atom bomb. We can add more onto the list. It don't matter. We've, irradiated the earth this much. What's another one gonna matter at this point?
Godzilla in this universe be like, well, I don't need to do shit. This is doing my job for me.
But bringing it up, that's the thing that kind of pissed a lot of fans off and has caused some controversy with the show to some degree.
Okay, then
because the city that's destroyed supposedly is supposed to be really big in Fallout New Vegas, and it's like attached to an entire faction called the New California Republic. And so people are really upset that the NCR have supposedly been destroyed and no longer exist. And they're really mad at Bethesda. I personally, like, this kind of goes into something we've kind of brought up here or there again. I'm fine with that because it's a huge, big change, right? And personally, one of my biggest problems with Fallout as of late is that Bethesda likes to say, hey, all of these things was in the last game. We're bringing it back into this game. And that's fine, but, they always set stuff like, hey, this is this far in the future. This is this far in the future. But these things all still exist. Nothing really changes with the quote-unquote wasteland, right? Or it doesn't feel that way.
Like, there are supposedly there are these big time gaps, but nothing really changes during those time gaps.
Yeah. So, personally, while this might be set within a time frame that, the NCR should still be around or not destroyed or what have you, I'm okay with it because it's different, right? Like, they're going in a different direction with it. And it doesn't necessarily mean the NCR is destroyed, but I'm still okay with it. I think I like this idea, and I want to see where they're going with it better.
To this, I do have to ask, is this an adaptation, or is this quote-unquote canon?
It is canon. According to Bethesda, Todd Howard himself. It just works, man. It is canon.
Okay. So there's a good chance, not to compare these shows in terms of quality because they are two completely different shows, but we have a Sonic Prime case on our hands. Oh, good. Oh, joy.
I would say this is better than Sonic Prime.
Well, again, it's not to compare the quality of the shows, but in terms of, this TV show based on the video game is suddenly canonical to the world of the video games, and there are contradictions which fans are pissed about. And also, ironically, something just came out with Sonic Prime that made fans even more angry. Like,
of course,
there was something with the writer for the game who was a consultant on the series. It's a whole thing. We can talk about that another time. Yeah, but basically, I was just curious though how much of it is like an adaptation, how much of this is canon. So apparently, if it is canon, I can see how I can see how fans would be pissed. But then again, I am also asking, how big is the contradiction, if it even matters?
To me, I don't think it even matters, and it doesn't seem like that big of a contradiction because the only issue that people have is like the NCR capital was destroyed, right? Like the big city, their big capital city was destroyed. But at the same time, right, we don't, like, there's nothing saying the NCR no longer exists or was completely wiped out. They could have other places, right?
It could just mean that it's also like not relevant at this point to the story. Maybe next season or something.
It's possible that too. Like, we'll definitely have to wait and see, but I think it's one of those things of people probably have jumped the gun somewhat. We need to wait and see what comes up, but even if they don't, I honestly think it's fine, personally. That's just my personal opinion. Some people will definitely disagree with me. I get it. Not saying you're wrong, just saying, to me, it doesn't bother me as much.
No opinion, I can't really say.
Listen, I'll take all the torches and pitchforks over this one for once. I won't send them I won't send them your way this time.
Yeah, for once, take responsibility for what you say.
No.
Please. Who knows? Maybe I'll also get some pitchforks if I say something I didn't even them. But who knows? Maybe even saying that I like Maximus.
I'm curious to. I kind of didn't like Maximus, so I'm curious. I think he's fine with the fans as far, so I think you're clear. But with me, you're not clear. But that's normal.
Well, the thing is, I enjoy the idea of this kid who had, because in a way he's kind of like a counterpoint to Lucy, that
Mhm.
he lost everything as a kid, and he kicked his ass, as a squire to get someplace, and you can see that even in let's call it the army, right? It's basically what it is.
Yeah,
Even in the
yeah.
army, they kind of treat him as a squire, nothing more, nothing less, and suddenly he's getting assigned to be in this very important mission, and he fucking lets his commanding officer die, and he takes over the Mac, and it's kind of fucked up, but you can also see that this is like a survival instinct, because he knows that if he tells them that the commander is dead, they're gonna come over and pick him up, and he's not gonna be in the field again. And he kind of knows that he needs to be there because he doesn't necessarily trust the other commanders to do it. He mostly trusts himself, and then they send him another squire, and they kind of bond with each other. They actually manage to accomplish things, and suddenly
Well, it's
there's a
also
scene
interesting
where
because that
Max.
squire bullied him, right? So
Yeah, but I kind of like that it's this. You know what? Maybe if things were different, me and this guy could actually be friends and everything. And then when the bully finds out that when Max reveals himself, he's like, "Nah, I can't accept that. No way. Fuck you. No." And again, it's this, because it's that if Lucy's too naive that she's looking for the best in people and she keeps getting screwed over for it, this was the one time Max thought he earned somebody's trust, and it still doesn't. I felt for the guy by the end
mm,
of this.
no fair. Like
Uh,
he definitely goes through it, right?
mhm. To be honest, by the end of the show, I didn't care for. When it comes to the end of the show, like in the final episode, I didn't really think he had that big of a part in those episodes.
Mm.
But yeah, I liked him for what he did, and I think honestly, if Max was a whole other show, I would have liked it more. Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, that was kind of I kind of agree with you on that problem. I feel like I thought the Brotherhood of Steel storyline kind of suffered from in this show somewhat because
Yeah.
you don't really get a whole lot of them, and they honestly seem very, and I get it. I think in the older games they were kind of this way too. Maybe I'm wrong, but they seem very incompetent, right? Like just really bad overall at all of their jobs.
Yeah, kinda.
I feel like in the older games
It
that
feel
wasn't the
it,
case, but I'm not quite sure. Maybe it
honestly,
was.
I can just imagine two people in this army being like, "Oh, don't worry. If shit goes down, we'll do what we did in the war. What did you do in the war? It's been 200 years. Do you think I remember?" It's that kind of vibe I get from them.
No, fair. Agreed. But yeah, like I liked Max, but then I also just felt kind of
I
about him. But I think it's not necessarily him I felt about. It was more so the Brotherhood of Steel themselves and how they were kind of portraying
Yeah.
them, which
Hmm.
I also thought was funny because you hear people, a lot of the complaints leveled at this show before it came. It's not before it came out and kind of as it was airing somewhat was, oh, Todd Howard loves the Brotherhood of Steel. He's going to be so up their ass, blah, 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 blah. And then you see this, and you're like, does Todd Howard love the Brotherhood of Steel? Because they're getting kind of shit on a lot in this show. I'm not
So it's
sure.
like
I'm not sure I agree with you.
so basically it's one of those, what people's expectations wasn't what actually ended up happening.
I don't think it was. Maybe people would disagree with me, but I definitely do not think it was.
Hmm. Very interesting.
Because that's what I expected. And I felt like, yeah, no. If this is the Brotherhood of Steel, they got a bad rap in this show.
Again, I just felt their plot didn't really connect as much to the main thing, and
It's very in the
until
background, right? Until like the
yeah, it's
very
very in
end.
the background, and again, I liked Max's story. Just it it felt like, why is he here at the end of the day? Because then after this, halfway through, we suddenly kind of get this entire thing that it was there a mall in Vault 33, and there's the entire politics about that. And when Lucy finds the other vault, she finds out that that despite it feeling like home, they live a very different life, and they have like these very different beliefs.
Mm.
Which there's a line I really like there where Lucy tells, I think it's the vault leader, who she tells her, you live in a very weird way, and she tells her, I'm sure we would have said the same thing if we visited your vault. Which
Oh
kind of
yeah.
again brings up the entire theme of where you're raised, who raised you, how they raised you, and what is necessarily the right way to do it. Is there a right way? Are both right? Are both faulty? I like this idea, but it needs to share the screen time with a bunch of other stuff. And
Well,
again,
it
there are a lot of great ideas here that just kind of get lost in the shuffle, and that kind of annoys me to
yeah, no,
say.
I get you on that one. It's definitely one of those things of they had to they did what you said they were doing, but also on top of that, right? You have the vault experiments too, because that's a
Hmm.
big thing from the games, and like all the
Yeah.
vaults are basically social experiments or just experiments using people as guinea pigs, basically, and doing different things, like looking up the different, little tidbits of lore on all the different vaults and all the different experiments in the different vaults is honestly probably more enjoyable sometimes than just playing the games, we'll admit,
Hmm.
because some of
Yeah.
them are fascinating, right?
I'm sure. I'm sure, but
So,
do I need to know this to watch the show? I wouldn't
no,
say
you
I need
don't.
to,
It's
but yeah.
definitely like this is a thing that, hey, in your own time, go do this because this is fun. Because there's some fascinating stuff you could learn about, like the world of Fallout and all the vaults and everything and how they experimented on people. Wild
And that's
stuff.
the other thing, because I felt like there's supposed to be some sort of a development with Lucy, because she goes on this journey essentially to save her father, and then by the end she finds out that maybe her father was kind of wrong about the way he went about things, and it just felt like it just kind of felt like, yeah, we're doing this because the main character needs to go through a development, and we need to set up a season 2, but I don't feel like Lucy necessarily learned if the way her father did things is wrong or better, or something felt a bit incomplete there.
I think that's something they're going to get more into in the second season, personally,
Could
is her
be.
relationship with her father, because I think this one was basically setting up, hey, here's kind of Maximus's story, here's Lucy's story, here's how they interconnect, here's this bit of a love story we have going on between the two, and then here's just Lucy and Max kind of learning about each other's worlds in different ways,
By
because like you said
speaking
earlier,
of,
they go to that other vault, and like that's how Max kind of gets to see how vault life is like, and then Lucy has been learning this entire time what wasteland life is like, right?
Mhm. Which, by the way, I forgot about it completely. But when you mentioned, Max and Lucy, growing together, and what was the point of Lucy's cousin who apparently has a crush on her?
Just because it's weird.
Just because that's it. That's the reason. It was
I
so dumb.
It's just that's why it's dumb and it's weird, and it fits right into Fallout. So there you go.
Though, to be honest, though, if this is one thing they do that they set, because they imply in the way that Lucy tells them that they might set up cousins together just so that they could learn how to kiss and have sex. This is kind of messed up, and I am starting to agree with the other vaults. This needs to be gone. This is emotionally scarring. I'm
Welcome to Vault
half joking
Life.
about. I'm half joking about this, but like, what the fuck?
Welcome to Vault Life.
No, thank you. Hmm, well, anyway, yeah, that's kind of what I have to say on the
Awkward.
matter. Yeah. What else do you have to say on the matter
I mean,
as a
we've not
friend?
been talking about it much, but like, what did you think of the Ghoul storyline and kind of like I guess he doesn't really have a storyline per se. I think we're gonna get more of him later on, where
Yeah.
he's still searching for his family. We
because
find out because we find out closer to the end that like, oh, he was the guy at the very beginning. He was the Hollywood actor dude.
and here's the thing, that's the one thing I will say. I figured out it's him the minute he showed up as the ghoul.
Oh, same. They weren't hiding it.
They weren't hiding it, but they feel the show acts like it's supposed to be like an M. Night Shyamalan type twist.
A little
That's
bit.
supposed to be, no way, and it's like I don't know.
I never knew.
Yeah, like it's supposed to be like, no shit, what? What? No, so, and all of that other stuff. But I don't know. I never really felt. I never felt like it was supposed to be a twist, and which did kind of surprise me that they seem to kind of cut around the bush with it, and it's like it's obviously him. It can't be anyone else. He talks like him. He does the same thing. It's like it's him. You can't tell me it's not him. But for all intents and purposes, I do like him. He's a threatening presence. I like that he has this charisma to him. I want to see more of him. Just don't give me this not so mysterious mystery.
I'm with you. I knew it was him like the second we saw him, pretty much, right? Because it's like, okay, yeah, this is that guy. When are you going to reveal that? And then they just kind of keep like going on with it for so long until close to the very end when you're like, oh, this is where we learn everything. Okay, cool. Personally, while watching it, I was kind of sitting there. It's like, man, there's a thought that might not be what they're going to do. That they might not like reveal that, oh, it was him all along. And they might do a different thing of like, oh, no, this is just someone who has watched a lot of his shows and he thinks he's him, something like that, right? But he's not actually him. There was a thought in the back of my mind. It's like, man, that's probably not what you're doing, but it could be, because that would be a very Fallout thing to do. And I'm kind of interested if that's what you're going to do. Oh, you didn't do that? Okay. Well, it's still good, but I'm kind of interested in that other idea I came up with now. I wonder what that would have been like.
Which, again, but he has a fun presence. Like, whenever he's on screen and he's the action scenes with him.
Goggins, man. Like, he's scene chews so well, right?
Like, I like him just fine. I just think if this was supposed to surprise me, then no.
No, it doesn't. No, it's not a twist. It's not some like major shock reveal at all. I think the big shock reveal is really like, especially if you're a fan of Fallout, is his wife saying like, that Vault Tech would basically set the bombs, right? They would start the nuclear like warfare between the US and Russia at that time, right? When the bombs first dropped. Like, I think that's the bigger reveal than that, oh, he's the ghoul? I never knew.
Yeah, agreed. To be honest, I do wonder, since we are getting a second season, I do wonder how much are they gonna be on the nose in terms of like how did we get to this point? Like, what devastated the world? I am a bit interested in that.
Well, what they show us at the end of the season. Excuse me. Sorry. What they showed us at the end of the season was New Vegas, right?
Yeah.
The Fallout thing for Las Vegas, essentially. And like Las Vegas or New Vegas in Fallout is supposed to be this big thing of it's, kind of like owned, quote unquote, by a man named Dr. House. And he was able to predict where all of the bombs would land. And he was, quote unquote predict, since now we know that he was basically a part of the group that, decided to bomb the US, essentially, right? To bomb the world. So, but he knew where all the bombs would land. And I'm curious to see how they're going to do that as well. Like, was he was he fully a part of that and knew, or did he just kind of not know? And
because it feels like he has his own kind of people that hurt, and also you don't get your nose to be like that for nothing.
No. Not he. House is a different character, not the ghoul. Is who I'm talking about.
Right.
But yeah, Yeah, we're going to New Vegas. We're going to the place he owns and runs, and he was again another person who was there at like before the bombs dropped, right? So it'll be interesting to see what they're going to do with that and how they're going to work everything from New Vegas into the show.
Hmm. Yeah.
I know this means very little to you, but to me,
Yeah, but I get that it's supposed to be some sort of lore thing that I'm just not getting at the moment.
listen, I also like I want to give the show credit as well. You know, there's a lot of big creature things, in Fallout. Like you saw the gulper, right? Like I
Hmm.
forgot to mention. What did you think of the gulper?
Yeah, I actually thought it was a really cool design.
Oh
Honestly,
yeah.
and again, whenever that thing showed up and whenever there were action scenes with it, I had a lot of fun.
See, but like the gulper is kind of a nothing monster within Fallout compared to some of the other monsters we can see.
Well, to be
So,
honest, I guess they just needed that thing, and this was the
oh no, they
thing
did.
that they
But
found.
I love. There's one particular monster. I don't know if you've heard of it. You probably have like the Death Claw. That's very particular to Fallout, and it's like a big thing.
If
I
you say so.
well, fair, but it's
I'm
very particular.
sorry.
No, no, fair, fair. I get it. It's very particular and very like centric to Fallout and its video games and everything. It features a
Hmm.
lot.
Yeah.
So, like, I want to say, respect to the show for not throwing that in there in the first season and kind of holding on to some of these more iconic things that they can use from Fallout, the games,
Gotcha.
right? And kind
Hmm.
of intersperse them out through the seasons more. Like, respect to them for holding on to a lot of that, not just throwing it out there the second they have the chance. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think it personally, it shows an understanding, at least to me, it shows an understanding of like this
Understand it,
world.
and also I think confidence
Yeah,
in the source material.
no, fair. Agreed. Because if you're throwing a bunch of that fan service stuff out there, it starts to feel like, oh, you're not really confident in your storytelling with this, are you? You didn't think this would work, did you? But no, like you can
Yeah, and
tell they
also
were and are.
and I appreciate that, it's not just that they're rushing through stuff just to get to the parts that fans want to see.
Mm.
Then again, I can also just say that at some point it feels like they're dragging this a bit too much, but that's more in terms of all the plot lines that they have to balance one thing at a time. But I do agree with you that if there are things that are left to acknowledge in this show, then I'm happy that they didn't just rush to get the stuff that people recognize in there for the sake of, oh, we need to do this because the fans are expecting it. Like I appreciate that.
Oh, fair. Absolutely fair.
Mhm. And with that said, anything else I should know?
No. I'm curious though, like anything you would want from a season two.
I guess okay. Then now that everything is kind of set up, like we know who Lucy is, we know who Max is, we know Ghoul,
Mhm.
and we know the world a bit more and the rules surrounding it. I guess I just want to know more. What is going to be our end game now? Because to some extent, Lucy kinda completed her journey because she set out to find her father. She did. She refused this proposal to go away, and now she realizes that the vaults might actually not be as good a concept as they make it seem. Okay, cool. I want to see that. I want to see I want to see this character grow more into into like the rebellious fighter who might be like, listen, we need to actually face the world and not hide from it. I also want to see Max now that he's seen a bit what vault life is like, and having met Lucy and stuff. I want to see him, also grow and kind of realize and kind of see maybe there can be good things to the world after everything he's went through. And Ghoul, he has a lot of stuff that I want to see him get through because, like you said, there seems to be a lot of lore there.
Yeah, it definitely feels
That
like Ghoul's gonna be more of a focus in season two.
Mhm. So, but I think the other thing I want to say, just more fun action and give me the continuation of the show. I suppose I want to learn more. I want to see more and balance it a bit better, please.
No, fair. I
That's
think
like that. I think that's like my one thing that I would ask of season two.
since we technically, I guess we'll still have three main characters, but it feels like Lucy and the ghoul story is kind of combining into one, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it feels like we'll have a bit, feels like, could be wrong, but it feels like we might end up with a bit better of a balance between it'll just be kind of Max's story with the Brotherhood of Steel and whatever they're choosing to do, and then Lucy and the ghoul story hunting down Lucy's dad and figuring out like more of the ghoul's past and what
As long
happened
as as long as there's
after the
more of the
bombs
dog.
drop, right?
Yeah,
More of
as
the
long
dog.
as there's more of the dog. I love that
Fair,
dog.
fair. Dog's great.
Yeah. So
CX
anything
404.
so anything else you want to say? What? Oh, because you did mention there's something you want to talk about regarding fan reaction or something.
I kind of talked about it already a little bit, and that was the stuff with like the NCR, right?
Okay, I get it. Because I was gonna scroll into the Wikipedia article for this. Apparently, there's a line here that says, in a YouTube video, Tim Kaine praised the adaptation for matching the mood of the series and for its Easter eggs and characters. He also defended the adaptation from accusations of contradicting the Fallout canon.
Yeah. Then
Wh-
a lot of that has to do with the NCR basically.
Okay,
That's kind of where the biggest contradiction comes from.
okay. So, as someone who doesn't know much of it, would you say you're on the fan base side or the Tim Kaine side?
I'm personally on Tim Kaine's side. I've not seen
Mhm.
this video, so I can't say everything as to what he says, but I don't think it. I personally, again, I would defend it from those accusations as well. I don't think it's that much of a contradiction. Number one, and number two, even if it is, I'm personally fine with it because it's again it's changing up the wasteland, which I think has been needed within Fallout for some time because Fallout has kind of, as I talked about before, right? Each new game is like always involving the exact same stuff and they're always involved and it never feels like anything changes within this world, right?
So I just kind of went into an article that covers this. Apparently, what is said is that about the lore changes is that none of that matters. I'm not in charge of this anymore, and neither are you. Lore drift is inevitable in a big IP.
Kind of disagree with him a little bit, but I get it.
To
Like,
some, I get what he means in terms of because actually coming for I heard Scott Cotton said of all people, but
mm,
there sometimes when you have so much lore, then storytelling can just disappear
no, it's
because
fair.
suddenly. But then again, I also think like that saying, oh well, I'm
Well,
not in charge of this anymore, and neither are you. It's kind of like it feels like kind of an of a lazy way to just dodge the question.
my thing with it, right, is that I fully respect where he's coming from. I get it. I don't disagree with him per se. But then I look over there, gonna reference it again because it's my thing to reference. I look over at One Piece and I see Oda over there, been writing One
Yeah.
Piece for like, 20, 30 years now. And it's like, oh, you remember that thing I referenced way back 20 years ago that you thought was nothing? Guess what? It's now something. And it's like, fuck you,
Yeah.
Oda. Like,
Okay.
Oda is the exception, let's be clear, right? No one's writing for 20, 30, 40 fucking years and being like, no, no, no. That thing I wrote 30 or 40 or 20 years ago, I'm bringing it back now. It's a thing now. Like, very few people are doing that, right? Let's be fair. Oda definitely is an exception in terms of like how he keeps track of things and how he will always bring stuff back and reuse it, right?
Hmm.
But I think it's unfair to say that, you know, story drift in a franchise this big is impossible to you know prevent. I don't think
Yeah.
that's true. I think there are other franchises that have proven that you can keep that from happening, right?
Hmm. Yeah, and but also like not to discredit it, but Fallout is not a franchise that's been going on for that long in retrospect.
Eh, how? I'm not sure how old Fallout is. Let me
Like
find out.
I because okay, because you mentioned One Piece. One Piece is something that's been going on for how many years
I
now?
think
And
since the '90s, basically. So One Piece has been going
yeah,
on for like 20 years.
okay, so maybe that, but but when I'm thinking of something like let's say superheroes, like Spider-Man or Batman,
Mhm.
how, how much you willing to bet that there are tons of continuity contradictions in these comics at some point?
Fair.
But Fallout is not that, right? It's not something that's been going on for 70 years or something. It's
Yeah.
yeah, I guess it's, and again, not to discredit it by any means, but I think it's not old enough or vast enough to have that distinction. I would say maybe.
I think that's fair. And yeah, Fallout's been running since like '97. That was when the first game came out. So
Hmm.
yeah. And like
So
Tim Kaine was one of the first workers on the first game, I believe, right?
yeah, hmm I think
But
so.
but
Anyway.
like I said, I don't disagree with him. Like I disagree with his statement that like I said, story drift is, impossible to prevent, but I disagree that but bleh. I don't disagree with that story drift is I fuck me. English, I speak it. I do well. I swear. I
You
do.
agree? You agree with that it doesn't necessarily matter, but you don't agree that the story drift is just inevitable.
Are we sure you're not the English speaker here? You're not the native one?
Ask everyone who would complain about the accent.
Fair. But yes, you're right. I agree that I don't think it matters. I disagree that story drift is impossible to prevent. I think it's imperfect. I think you can definitely prevent story drift, but that's just my personal opinion.
Hmm. Well, but overall, even with as someone who doesn't know anything about this franchise, right?
Mhm.
I would still say I think it's a good show.
It is. I would agree.
And if me not knowing the canon prevents me from understanding something, then my apologies. But I'm judging it as it is.
Fair.
So, anything else to add?
No, I think can't wait for season 2. I'm very curious to see what they have going on next because
Yeah, that is
this was a
actually the other
good
thing. Yeah,
start.
that's another thing. Yeah, there is a season two, and I guess consider me interested for whenever that pops up. I would
I
I
got
would
one.
love to see what.
I got
Hmm?
HC to like one finally.
Hey, I like stuff that you
No, I
recommend.
know. I know.
Mhm. Well,
I figured you
so I
would
get
enjoy this one though. Personally, I figured like,
yeah,
yeah, this seems like this would be more up HC's alley.
yeah, and then it fucked me up and made me have
I did
an
not expect
emotional
that.
an emotional midlife crisis. Thanks for that. I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
Hey, welcome to being 30, man.
I guess. Well,
That's what we
anyway,
do
this
here.
was
Welcome to the club.
so I guess this was it for this episode of the Outcast. We hope you enjoyed it. What did you think about the Fallout show? Are you what do you think about the contradictions for the games lore? If you are a fan of the games, or if you are not a fan, like if you are coming from the same camp that I am, did you enjoy the show and would you like to see more of it? You can or would you check the games even? You can tell us all about it in the comment section below, on our Tumblr, which is Berkcast Team, and on our Twitter, which is Berkcast with a capital B, capital C. So until the next episode, I was HC.
I was Wolf.
And we will see you all next time. Take care.
Bye bye.